Chapter 7. The Cycle of Life. 1. Roland's Awakening. This scene in The King's Omen, where Bruce visits Roland in the hospital and shows him a picture of their new house overlooking Lake Erie, eloquently encapsulates themes of transformation, legacy, hope, and the harsh realities of life within a crime family. Symbol of stability and achievement, the new house, larger and more spacious with a calming view of Lake Erie, stands as a symbolic milestone representing Bruce's success and aspiration to provide a better future for his family. It contrasts sharply with their previous unstable living conditions, underscoring progress and permanence. Emotional complexity and family dynamics. Roland's mixed feelings, from skepticism and confusion about their sudden change in fortune to a profound reflection on his traumatic experiences with fire, highlight the deep emotional currents that run beneath material gains. His admission of feeling alive amid danger reveals the complex psychological impact of their violent lifestyle. Roland's dialogue about the house fire is a profound expression of trauma, resilience, and transformation that adds significant emotional depth to the King's Omen narrative. Trauma and survival. Roland candidly acknowledges the trauma of the fire, an event that nearly destroyed him physically and emotionally. His reflection on the ordeal shows how such catastrophes imprint deep scars, shaping his perception of life and mortality. Feeling alive amid danger. Roland's paradoxical statement about feeling alive in the presence of death and destruction reveals a complex psychological state where extreme adversity temporarily intensifies his sense of being. This can be interpreted as a kind of existential awakening or confirmation of his will to survive. Roland's latter statements deserve further exploration. He tells Bruce he's not sure if it was being on the edge of death or existing in the presence of something so powerful it could kill a man, and Roland states that he felt human and that he felt real power. Roland's last statements are his most provocative, saying, "It was like a baptism and a rebirth," and he tells his father, "The person who went into that fire was not the same guy who came out," and he assures his father that he will never be the same after this, but in a good way. This leaves Bruce speechless, prompting him to kiss Roland on the forehead. This forces Bruce and the readers to ponder what kind of figure Roland will grow up to be in this novel, and it is an excellent way to further Roland's character arc, as Paul M. Williams brings the reader into the mind and psychological thinking of young Roland Edwards. 2. Germaine's Concern. The dialogue between Mac and Germaine at Starbucks poignantly reveals the tension between idealism and realism faced by leaders in dangerous, high-stakes environments like those depicted in The King's Omen. Themes of danger and mortality, Germaine's concerns about safety, and the risks to his family underline the harsh realities of their world, where violence and threats permeate daily life. His desire for more protection reflects a pragmatic instinct for survival. Mac's stubborn resolve. Mac's response introduces a stoic, almost martyr-like philosophy that values dignity and resistance over submission, invoking historical figures like Fred Hampton to emphasize courage and defiance in the face of oppression and violence. When Mac says, "If I'm going to die, it will be on my feet looking forward, not on my knees looking down," Germaine admonishes him, saying that he doesn't have time for quotes, and he reminds Mac that this is real life and they are in real danger. But Mac is suddenly distracted by a news report that hits home. Emotional weight of loss. Mac's reaction to the news of Robert Douglas's death humanizes him, revealing vulnerabilities beneath his hardened exterior. The loss of Big Bob, described as the best of us, adds a layer of personal grief that underscores the personal costs of their lifestyle. Conflict between perspectives. The conversation showcases a classic tension between maintaining an idealistic, heroic stance versus adapting to harsh practicalities, reflecting broader struggles in leadership where decisions simultaneously risk lives and uphold principles. 3. Bruce and Cleotis reflect by the pond. This scene is a rich, multi-layered exploration of identity, loyalty, transformation, and the heavy cost of life in organized crime. The setting at Euclid Creek lends symbolic depth that enhances the emotional and thematic undercurrents of the conversation between Cleotis and Bruce. Setting and symbolism. Euclid Creek is known for its flowing waters cutting through urban and suburban terrain, symbolizing constant change, continuity, and the passage of time. Using the creek as the backdrop for this dialogue underscores themes of reflection and personal reckoning. The visual of water shifting with the wind captures the fluid, often unpredictable nature of their lives and destinies in the crime world. Thematic layers in the dialogue duality of choice and consequence. Cleotis outlines the bitter paradox of their lifestyle. Every success comes with sacrifice and suffering. His reference to taking care of very important people, yet losing his peace of mind, reflects the criminal trade-off. Power and security come at the cost of moral burdens and personal loss. Family legacy and identity. Through stories of family members and associates like Caesar, Clavon, Reese Broussard, and Flex, the scene emphasizes how the crime lifestyle is not a chosen path for many, but their inherited legacy. Cleotis' warning about gangsters being born and not manufactured contrasts innate identity versus environmental molding, stressing authenticity in their violent world. Bruce's internal conflict. Bruce's nervousness and tentative responses mirror a man caught between two worlds. His first reaction is to light his cigarette, and Cleotis stops him, demanding his full attention. Bruce worries about the relative safety and control of his kitchen job and the ruthless demands of the criminal family he's becoming a part of. His desire for control at work, but confusion in the larger criminal context, highlights his transitional state. Reflection and psychological weight. The literal reflections in the water symbolize introspection and self-confrontation. Cleotis' inability to meet his own reflections' gaze suggests the weight of his violent actions and life choices, serving as a metaphor for his haunted conscience and the fragile human beneath the hardened exterior. Mortality and loyalty. Cleotis' acknowledgement that one murder will always haunt him, and he tells Bruce that he still hears the screams of Bobby Ross's wife in his head to this day. It introduces mortality and psychological trauma as persistent themes. His advice to Bruce to do it for family rather than himself stresses the importance of loyalty and collective survival in their dangerous world. 4. Two old pals reminiscing. The dialogue between Mac and Rashawn in this scene profoundly addresses themes of regret, decay, loyalty, and the psychological toll of a life gone awry within the crime world depicted in The King's Omen. Physical and emotional decay. Rashawn's deteriorated physical state in the nursing home sharply contrasts with Mac's relatively better condition, symbolizing the ravages of time and consequences of their past lives. His withdrawn gaze out the window signals detachment and resignation. Symbolism of the window and water. Rashawn's view of the traffic and Euclid Creek water outside reflects his static state amid the ongoing, unpredictable flow of life, a metaphor for lost opportunities and stagnation. Confrontation of past and legacy. Mac's blunt reminder of how friends and role models have fallen, notably Angie's dark influence and the tragic fates of Andre and Big Bob, confronts Rashawn with the heavy burden of their shared history. It shows the deep fractures and moral complexities within their world. Failure and accountability. Mac criticizes Rashawn for succumbing to guilt and anger, which have led to destructive behavior, including abusing Bruce. This accusation ties Rashawn's failure to guide and protect the younger generation to broader themes of generational trauma and the cyclical nature of violence. Emotional impact and isolation. Rashawn's final statement, wishing he had chosen death over the life he lived, exposes profound despair and hopelessness, underscoring the psychological scars borne by those entrenched in crime. Mac's disgust and disillusionment. Mac's reaction, leaving without sympathy, portrays his own emotional exhaustion and the fracturing of past bonds, emphasizing how betrayal and pain erode trust and loyalty. 5. Meet Stephen Edwards. This scene vividly presents Stevie Edwards as a volatile and entitled figure asserting his authority in a setting that is both unfamiliar and resistant to his presence, highlighting internal family and organizational tensions within the King's Omen. Stevie's entrance and attitude. The scene opens with Stevie's arrival unnoticed, underscoring his detachment or disconnect from the local environment. His sudden outburst, "Excuse me," shocks everyone, projecting desperation and anger that contrasts with his otherwise polished, Vegas-style demeanor. Confrontational power play. Stevie's demand for respect and acknowledgement as the boss of the East immediately sets a combative tone, displaying his entitlement based on family legacy rather than earned respect. His threats and insistence on being addressed formally challenge the existing social order in a public, confrontational way. Lysandra's resistance and control. Lysandra embodies local authority and pride, standing up firmly to Stevie and calling out his behavior and disrespect. Her sharp rebuke, refusal to tolerate his insults, and swift assertion that this is her restaurant assert territorial control and the enforcement of local norms against outsider arrogance. Atmosphere and social dynamics. The silent patrons and employees' reactions reinforce the power dynamics at play, siding with Lysandra, which reveals social alignment and grounds the scene in communal judgment and respect norms. Smoking incident as symbol. Stevie's blatant disregard for the no-smoking policy symbolizes his defiance of rules and respect for boundaries, signaling potential conflict escalation. Anticipation and threat. Stevie's questioning about Cleotis and impatience heighten tension, with references to past violence. The last guy walked home with broken ribs, reinforcing the real stakes and consequences for disrespect in their world. 6. Bruce's thrill ride. This scene at the car dealership in The King's Omen functions on multiple symbolic and narrative levels common in crime fiction, especially around cars and dealerships as motifs. Symbol of status and power. The red Lexus, a luxury and conspicuous vehicle, represents status, power, and entry into a higher echelon. Cleotis's easy ability to acquire such a car signals his influence and wealth within the criminal world, serving as a badge of success and respect. Tension between new and old. Bruce's hesitation and discomfort about the car's price suggest his transitional state. He's entering a world of high stakes and opulence, but still feels the pressure and risk involved. The car becomes a symbol of crossing a threshold to a more dangerous lifestyle. Dealer's familiarity as social capital. The dealer's immediate recognition of Cleotis signals a network of influence extending even into civilian enterprises, where reputations precede individuals and open doors that might be closed to others. Symbolism of speed and control. Bruce's nervous but thrilling drive represents the adrenaline rush and risk-taking inherent in criminal life. The momentary fear and exhilaration of outrunning a cop hint at empowerment, but also underline continual danger. Moral complexity. Cleotis's casual dismissal of law enforcement through his control over the police metaphorically expresses the blurred lines of legality and power in the crime world. His advice to Bruce about treating enemies like friends and vice versa underscores the precariousness of loyalty and trust. Urgency and chaos. The call from Lysandra to Cleotis and the chaos Stevie causes sharply contrast with the calm car-buying moment, reminding readers of the constant volatility beneath moments of comfort. Narrative foreshadowing. The red car, a symbol of status, speed, and potential recklessness, serves as a narrative device aligning with Bruce's accelerated entry into crime life, juxtaposed against an eruption of violence at the restaurant waiting for Cleotis. 7. Stevie sets his demands. This scene featuring Stevie Edwards' defiance and territory, Stevie's casual but deliberate act of putting out his cigar on the table, along with his command to chop their fingers off if anyone touches it, signals his blatant assertion of dominance and territorial control. The cigar is not just a personal indulgence, but a mark of his reign, a physical token of his power in this space. Tension and disrespect. The cigar's prominent role also accentuates the disrespect Stevie is displaying. He smokes openly in a no-smoking area, disregards patrons, and shows no concern for rules, a metaphor for his chaotic and aggressive approach to leadership compared to the more measured authority of Cleotis and Lysandra. Character contrast. Lysandra's sharp reprimand contrasts with Stevie's arrogance. She enforces respect and propriety, projecting control of her domain versus Stevie's disruptive entitlement. Group dynamics. The fearful patrons and Cleotis's restrained rage underscore the unspoken rules and consequences of defiance in this world, amplifying the scene's tension. Scene dynamics and themes power struggle. This scene is a vivid portrayal of a power struggle within the Edwards family and their associates, with Stevie aggressively taking control in Cleotis's absence, challenging established hierarchies. Family and violence. Stevie's demand for payment and his violent threats heighten the stakes, intimating severe repercussions for disrespect and delay. Atmospheric tension. The chaotic wrecking juxtaposed with the poised, but threatening cigar-smoking gesture epitomizes instability under the surface of controlled violence and authority. Symbolism of the seat and chair height. Stevie forcibly taking Cleotis's seat and adjusting the chair to his own height symbolizes a blatant physical and psychological assertion of dominance. The seat, representing Cleotis's power, authority, and throne, is usurped, signaling a direct challenge to the existing leadership hierarchy. Manipulation of respect and identity. Stevie's insistence on titles, Mr. Edwards, paired with his ignorance or disrespect for personal names, underlines his commanding yet disconnected style of leadership. This highlights the tension between earned respect grown over time and demands born from inherited status or entitlement. Control through surveillance. Stevie's demand for detailed financial records and continuous supervision of Cleotis's key associates represents a modern form of control through surveillance and mistrust, aiming to consolidate power by dismantling networks of loyalty Cleotis has built. Psychological warfare. The verbal jabs, mispronouncing his name, insulting his capacity, and challenging his authority are tactics to undermine and destabilize Cleotis, pushing toward an inevitable conflict. Threat of violence and precarious power. Stevie's threat to start a new team, if not accepted, encapsulates the ruthless and high-stakes nature of mafia politics. Revolutions can be swift, violent, and consequential. Cigar as a power token. Stevie's cigarette smoke blown in Cleotis's face after exiting is a provocative symbolic gesture of disrespect and psychological dominance, reinforcing the boldness of his power grab. Cleotis's internal conflict. The scene closes on Cleotis in his chair, deeply contemplating whether maintaining the fight for power is worth the cost, revealing his vulnerability and the heavy burden leadership entails. The confrontation between Stevie and Bruce in the scene from The King's Omen is a compelling microcosm of the larger power struggles and social dynamics at play within the Edwards crime family and their affiliates. It dramatizes themes of courage, respect, fearlessness, and shifting power. Bruce's fearlessness. Bruce's unflinching attitude in approaching Stevie, tapping him on the shoulder despite the surrounding goons, reveals surprising bravery and a refusal to bow to intimidation. This moment marks him as a character with growing confidence and stakes within the family's world, signaling that he's willing to challenge traditional power hierarchies. Stevie's ambiguity. Stevie's reaction, disgust mixed with intrigue, and his cocky demeanor, puffing smoke, wearing sunglasses, paint him as a charismatic but volatile figure who is used to commanding respect. The fact that he likes Bruce's humor, despite the confrontational context, introduces complexity in their relationship, suggesting potential for uneasy respect or future conflict. Lysandra's protective role. Her scream is a stark reminder of the ever-present danger and the need for vigilance in their environment. Her hand in her pocket near a weapon subtly signals readiness to defend, adding tension and emphasizing the precariousness of their lives. Symbolism of the cigar. Previously established as a symbol of power and control, the cigar left behind and Bruce's act of picking it up function as a symbolic reclaiming of control in the face of disorder. It's an unspoken challenge to Stevie's authority and a quiet assertion of resilience within the chaos. Social and power dynamics. The scene illustrates how power negotiations occur subtly in everyday actions. Who dares to touch whom, the interplay of gazes, and the silent communication between the goons and Bruce. It exposes the fragile balance of fear, respect, and defiance that holds their world together. Atmosphere of tension. The mounting tension between calm, controlled cleaning, and Stevie's erratic, disruptive presence creates a compelling dynamic of order versus chaos, reflecting larger themes of control in crime family narratives. 8. The Assassination of Mackaveli Watts. This powerful scene set at Starbucks between Bruce and Mac serves as a poignant turning point, rich with symbolism, emotional depth, and narrative tension that captures the tragic realities of entrapment in crime life. Starbucks as a symbolic setting. Starbucks represents a space of seeming normalcy amid chaos, a public place fostering fleeting human connection, yet often marked by isolation and alienation. Setting this critical conversation here emphasizes the contrast between ordinary life and the dangerous underworld Bruce is entering, underscoring themes of duality and facade. Mentorship and warning. Mac functions as a seasoned mentor, delivering a hard-hitting warning about the seductive yet destructive path Bruce is on. His recounting of Big Bob's involvement with Angela Edwards and fall from laundering to murder, ending lonely and broken, serves as a haunting foreshadowing of Bruce's potential fate. Emotional conflict. Bruce's fiddling with his cigarette portrays nervousness and reluctance, while his anger at Mac's probing about his mother reveals his unresolved trauma and protective emotional walls. The broken cigarette symbolizes Bruce's breaking composure and the smoker's dilemma, mirroring his internal fracturing. Inevitable tragedy. Mac's blunt statement that you can never leave this life, and his refusal to sugarcoat outcomes inject fatalism, emphasizing how the criminal lifestyle consumes and destroys, no matter the attempts to escape. Intrusion of violence. The arrival of the hooded man and the sudden gunshot brutally shatter the fragile moment of guidance, symbolizing the ever-present threat and unpredictability inherent in their world. The act of violence occurring in this public, everyday space amplifies the shock and exposes the omnipresent danger. Symbolic imagery of blood and tobacco. The mingling of Mac's blood with the tobacco spilling from the broken cigarette creates a visceral image symbolizing the pollution of innocence and the toxic cost of this life. Bruce holding the blood and tobacco in his hand becomes a literal and metaphorical unmasking of consequences. Bruce's psychological shattering. Bruce's subsequent shock, screams, and tears reveal a rupture in his psyche, a transformative moment where theoretical warnings become devastating reality, setting a trajectory that propels his character growth amid trauma. Scene analysis summary. This scene masterfully blends symbolism and raw emotional power to highlight the tragic inevitability and psychological toll of life in organized crime, crucial to Bruce's arc in The King's Omen. 9. The confrontation scene where Teddy, grieving Mac's assassination, commands Flex to clear any cops on their payroll from the precincts before storming them is a sharp depiction of escalating retaliation common within organized crime narratives. Although Teddy was instrumental in Mac's murder, he still weeps for his one-time mentor and ally. This shows Teddy's human side, while also demonstrating his strategic and pragmatic nature by setting himself up to become the new leader of Leave SEALs.